Let's cut the bullshit. We've got straight up marketing advice. You should use it.
Just drop the jargon.
Adam and Simon's Bullshit Busters.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Adam and Simon Bullshit Busters. I'm Simon Batchelor.
I'm Adam Bastock.
And this week we are going to be talking about conversion rates. Now this is episode number 2 in a 5-part series of videos all about how to measure website success. So you can work out whether your website is working for you, generating leads and crucially getting you conversions, or whether it's just sat there costing you money. We did our first video last week all about
Traffic sources.
traffic sources. I'm going to pick up there and drop in.
Yeah.
We did our first video last week all about traffic sources, so if you've not seen that, there'll be a link above to the video now if you want to jump back and watch episode number 1. So today, all about conversion rate. So Adam, what is a conversion rate? What are we measuring? What do we mean by that term?
Yeah, so very, very bluntly, conversion rate is basically the amount of people out of 100 that actually purchase your product or do a thing. So typically, because I'm in e-commerce, I typically refer to conversion rate as sales, but it can be anything from submitting a lead generation form, signing up to an email address, or even downloading a PDF, or any kind of action you want to measure. It will be a conversion rate. So if someone comes to your site and 5 people out of the first 100 do that action, that is a 5% conversion rate. The reason why you want to track these different metrics, and we'll come on to later just how you set these up and how you track them, is just so that you understand, kind of leading on from last week, how each traffic source kind of varies based on behavior, and some traffic sources will have higher conversion rates than others, and equally you might see different conversion rates at times of day or different times during the week. There's quite a few variables here.
Yeah.
I think conversion rate is very important because it shows you the potential of your website as well. So, if you've got a conversion rate of 5%, but you've only got 100 people coming to your site, then you want to increase that and go, well, actually, the hypothesis would be that if we increase that to 1,000 people, we would then get 50 signups, and therefore we can scale our business that way and kind of plan what that looks like in terms of lead generation thereafter. I think, having looked at quite a few small businesses over the past year, I think a lot of people ignore goals a little bit because it seems quite complex. But it is in fact incredibly easy to set up, and I think it is one of the biggest impacts you can make in your business if you're not doing it at the minute, in terms of just getting a very basic idea of how many people are submitting contact forms to you, and conversely where they're coming from. It might actually be that you're getting loads of traffic from social media, but no one's actually converting, and all of your actual meaningful traffic's coming through referrals or something like that. Again, linking on from last week. So if you've not listened to last week, then go back and listen to that. But I think that's where conversion rate sits. Is a really important, what's the word?
Metric.
Kind of important metric, but kind of guide really as well to your entire site of just without it, you're a bit rudderless because you don't know what people are meant to be doing. So traffic's great, but it's only half the story. If you've got a website, you normally want people to do something. So that goal can be anything.
Yes, so I think probably the confusing thing is that Google Analytics measures what they call goals as a conversion rate. So it's when someone achieves a goal, they do so at a certain rate, as you say, per 100, giving you a percent. But the terminology there is that they are different. So your conversion rate measures the success of the goal. So to set it up, you need to go to goals and create a new goal. Now, in e-commerce, this is fairly easily done. If you're using something like WooCommerce or Shopify, actually it already feeds in all the goals and gives you all of this data itself. When you connect the two together, it sets up all of your goals and links them together. There's other things you can do in there. There's more optimizations you can do, and get in touch if you want to know what some of those are. We could, again, do a whole series of videos just on that. But I think one of the key things that a lot of small businesses don't do, especially in the lead gen market, is they don't measure the number of leads they get. So they know that maybe they get 10 form fills a week, maybe, on their website. but they can't link that in analytics. So all of that amazing data about where the traffic's come from, whether they're new or returning, all of their demographics, if you've got demographic data, what they did before they filled in the form, how many blogs they've read, have they looked at all these pages, all of the data you've got sat there, that rich data that can give you some real insight into what's working and what's not, is lost simply because as soon as they fill in a form, they just disappear off the end. Whereas actually, if you set up a goal really easily, you can track, okay, well, they did all this great stuff and then they converted. And especially if you're going to spend money on ads, if you're spending money on Facebook ads, you're spending money on Google ads, and you can't measure when someone fills in a form, you're literally pouring money down the drain because you don't know if it's working. So yes, you might get 1,000 people to your website, but did any of them click on the form? You don't know. So I know through hearing it in hearsay, a lot of agencies who run ads just say you can't measure it because they can't be bothered to set it up. Or they say, oh, you only need to install Facebook Pixel and measure it if you're a big agency or if you're spending thousands. And that's total bullshit. It's like, if you can't measure it, you shouldn't spend £1 on it or more, anything at all. So the setting up a goal in Google Analytics for a form is really, really sensitive. Like 1/ can break it in the wrong place.
Yeah.
So you need to read the blog, the article they've got on how to set it up, which we'll put a link to in the description notes, and follow it exactly. It's like if you add .html on the end, doesn't work. If you take it off, all these little intricacies which they talk about, you really need to get right. But basically, once it's set up, it's really effective. So from our point of view, when we build a website for a client, we encourage them to try and sort of put back into their measurement the value of the work that came out of that inquiry. So if they get 10 form fills, we'll review those form fills with them at the end of the month or the end of the week and say, right, did any of these convert? And they'll be like, oh yeah, that person actually became a customer, like they placed a £20,000 order. It's like, right, okay, where did they come from? They came from LinkedIn. Great. So how much do you want to spend on LinkedIn? And if that made you £20,000 and that customer came from LinkedIn, then suddenly spending a few £1,000s on LinkedIn ads or content or blogging, it's an easy justification to make because you can join those dots.
I think that's the main thing. Is it just gives you the entire picture, and that picture's going to look different for every business.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, without it, you're only looking at half of the picture. I think one thing to kind of quickly mention is on the email sign-ups as well. That's another thing that quite often gets missed is email sign-up rate. And for most kind of retail and B2B companies, I think email sign-ups are very valuable. Not very valuable in a long-term sense. They're not necessarily a high-value item in the short term, but you still want to be able to track where those are coming from. The easiest way to do that tends to be to set up like a bespoke landing page that is like a thank you page after they have signed up. Especially MailChimp, and then that makes life much easier. And that's the kind of power you can do with goals. It's a very simple system that's quite sensitive, but as soon as you know how to use it, you can then create custom landing pages and build those kind of flows or user journeys to track exactly what's going on.
Yeah. I think a key thing on lead gen is to use what they call a thank you page. So
exactly.
You'll probably have seen it. When you go to a website and you fill in a contact form and the form just disappears and it just says the word thank you on the page, that isn't trackable. It's an absolute nightmare. And if that's how your contact form works, you need to have a word with your web developer because it's bad practice. It was popular in the 90s. It's been bad practice ever since. Yeah. What should happen is it should take you to a completely separate page. Like when you complete an order on Amazon or on Shopify or most e-commerce stores, the basket doesn't just say thank you for your order. It flips you to a brand new page that says thank you very much for your order, or thank you very much for joining the mailing list, or thanks very much for your inquiry. And the simple rule for that is you can just count how many people get to that page, because you can only get to that page by filling in the form. So in analytics as a goal, you just say the goal is that they viewed this page. So there are some sort of half-assed web platforms out there like Wix that do use thank you pages. So you're not really taking it seriously if you're using Wix anyway, but if you are stuck with Wix, then there are ways around it, but you're going to have a think and ask Wix. But ultimately, you need, once you've filled in that form, to push someone off to a page. As I say, if you're using WooCommerce or Shopify, it's already taken care of for you, so you don't need to worry too much about it. But
Yeah, I think those kind of thank you pages are just really valuable and very simple to set up, and just makes life a lot easier. I recently did some work with a client where basically we rebuilt probably about 5 or 6 different forms for them, and it was basically we created the hosted page and then a thank you page afterwards as well, so that we could track the entire kind of 3-stage step where they went from product to landing page to then submission and kind of and thank you. And we can now track that in analytics. We can see the goal, and we can see where in that process people are dropping off. That's slightly more advanced, and I wouldn't necessarily worry about that now. I think it is just a case of get any goals you can set up is going to be meaningful, but only if it's based on business metrics. Just to put that caveat in there, I think you can track things like page on time or time per session and stuff like that, which makes you feel good.
Yeah.
But I think try and avoid it because it doesn't really matter. You can't get more people spending more time on your site isn't directly going to relate to more sales for you. So, yeah.
I think also
Anyway.
one other one we haven't mentioned is the download. So let's say you've got a downloadable guide. You would say, put in your name and your email, click download. It then sends you to a separate page saying, thanks, here's your download. And that's how you measure how many people download the file. The other thing you can do is if you're using something like Drip, then the Drip tracking script that you put on the website actually does all of that conversion tracking for you. And it tells you it gives you all your sources, and it tells you how many people signed up, what they signed up for, whether they downloaded it, and all of that other data. But I think just getting your head into that, I need to be able to measure when this stuff is happening, mindset is crucial, because as soon as you measure one thing, you'll then be like, oh, well, I can't measure that, and I don't know where that came from, and who's this? And as soon as you've seen like it working in one, you then, I think, get a taste for it, and then you realise how important all this data is. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth doing. It can feel like a bit of a faff. There's lots of guides and lots of things out there. We can point you in the right direction if you are getting stuck, so do get in touch if you are. But yes, that has been our second part guide on how to measure website success. Next week, we are looking at a topic all about branded traffic and non-branded traffic, i.e. what words are people typing into Google in order to find your website? And crucially, why does that matter? So if you want to find out all about that, hit the subscribe or the follow button near you. If you're on YouTube, just hit the button below. If you're listening, just give us a quick tap on the subscribe or the follow button, and you'll be notified as soon as episode 3 comes out. So thank you very much for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.